Welcome back, everyone, to Delta Y. This week we'll be talking about
A new study that details toxic materials that are spewed out of 3D printers,
the 5G revolution and everything you'll need to know how to get your cell phone ready.
concrete printing in 3D that will put an end to boring buildings,
The equation to show how shark scales are patterned based off a World War II codebreaker.
and a funny article having to do with the New Jersey Supreme Court.
I'm Josh,
This is Grayson.
and welcome to Delta Y.
Alright, so we just want to start this podcast by saying that this is an early recording. Josh has to leave early or later than I do, so we're going to be recording this a little bit earlier than usual. This is a Wednesday that this was recorded on, but anyway.
It's early enough that Grayson can't remember the day because it's actually a Thursday, but it's about 6 a.m., so we're both a little bit out of it.
Okay, fine, whatever.
He's got exams coming up, and I got to go home, so...
Yeah.
Well, let's get it started.
Alright, so this new study that details toxic particles spewed from 3D printers comes to us from Gizmodo. So researchers have found that 3D printers spew tiny particles into the air as they operate, though the quantity and nature of these potentially toxic aerosols are poorly understood. The new study also identifies a startling variety of these emissions and the conditions under which they operate. Basically what these are kind of akin to what we were talking about last week with the microfibers, except these are ultrafine particles, or UFPs.
And this is not ingestion via like water. This would be ingestion via air.
This would be absorbed by your cardiovascular system. If these get into your pulmonary system, these could damage you immensely.
Well, because these are aerosols, and aerosols.
They're technically aerosols. They're still solids by their nature, being particles.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
And as I've had a lot of experience with 3D printers in my life so far, I spent 3 years in high school with them. It concerns me a little bit when you hear about this kind of stuff because it's like, well, I've spent hours on hours standing next to 3D printers running, making sure they're running.
Well, do you stand next to them when the print begins? Because that's when the most UFPs actually are produced, at the beginning of a print.
Okay, I didn't see that part.
This is only with filament deposition print FDM modeling printers. So the ones that print out layer by layer with ABS or PLA.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't account for SLA printers
or resin printers or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't account for those because those don't have that kind of material being put down at that kind of a rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is definitely interesting. I mean, I want to see more results from proper controlled results on this.
Well, they've already identified more than 200 different volatile organic compounds in these basically invisible puffs emanating from the printers.
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, they're all 0.1 microns or less in diameter.
Well, I mean, you've got formaldehyde, styrene, and what is that one? Caprolactam.
I'll let you try to talk about that.
Yeah, so formaldehyde, if anyone doesn't know, is basically a preservative for...
It's what they'll put the
it's
pig's heart in that you dissect in the 8th grade.
Yeah, or for me, cats in the 10th grade. Yeah, it's very concerning because I just got a 3D printer a couple of months ago, and I've been standing next to it when it prints out stuff.
And I guess the reason I want to see proper results is, yes, there are these very harmful particles, but the question is, are they in enough of a concentration where it's going to harm you?
Yes.
Because, well, the question is, what's the concentration?
Well, they are 0.1 microns
in diameter.
In diameter, yeah.
But I'm meaning how many of these particles, because yeah, we're emanating all these, but I want to see
Well, I don't know the LD50 of formaldehyde off the top of my head, but I can assume it's relatively low, which is why this is actually pretty concerning.
I can believe that, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess this is something that they'll have to keep looking at and do more studies on to make sure that they found something. This could be really bad for 3D printing, but I don't think it'd be that bad. You just end up with more isolated 3D printers and less.
Yeah.
No more restriction.
I mean, for the one that I've got, I can basically make an enclosure for it and have event that goes out, so
And
that way
that's-
we can pump out all the UFPs.
And that's for most printers on the market. I mean, a lot of them nowadays come and closed, so it's
Not all of them.
okay. I
Like
should
the-
say that, yeah.
Well, there's one that I'm actually looking at. I think I've showed you the one that was like $99 or something like that.
Yeah, that one's not closed, but
That one's
the
not
enclosures-
closed.
The enclosures would be easy enough to build, so
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, just make it out of some plywood or something. Mm-hmm. All right, you want to talk about the 5G revolution?
absolutely. So we've gone through what 3G. I've gone in my life through nothing to 3G to 4G to LTE to what's coming up next, which is 5G. And the biggest telecom company that's announced this was about 5 years ago. Verizon talked about 5G, and nowadays it's actually going to be coming into effect probably next year. We already have phones that are going to be 5G capable that have premiered this year, and it's 5G is going to be 10 to 100 times faster than 4G LTE. It's not like 2 times faster. It's a lot faster. Because when they take these steps, these are big steps. And you're thinking about this, it's like downloading a whole season of TV in a couple of seconds, which is probably about 50 gigs nowadays. And it's not just that it's going to be faster, it's going to be lower latency. So that's like your ping, or the amount of time it takes for you to put information out to the tower, for the tower to transmit information across the country, that information across the country to be put into someone else's phone. So that's going to be brought down from currently about 20 milliseconds to as low as a millisecond.
So that bandwidth is going to increase
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, so the bandwidth here is crazy high. And, we've seen a couple of phones with this. The Moto 5G mod is definitely a interesting one to see.
Well, okay, so the thing that I actually have with this is we don't really know the health risks of 5G.
Yeah.
There have been studies that I have looked at where it has caused cancer in mice, because this is a higher energy waveform. This is like anywhere between below 6 gigahertz to 24 up to 86 gigahertz in its frequency range. This has potential to harm humans. Like I'm just going to say it outright. There is a potential to harm humans with this technology. It does need to be researched further, but overall, I mean, if the research does show that these waveforms are less harmful than I have read them to be,
And
sure, I'll use them.
the thing is, they are presented in this article as being still harmful. So they are high frequency energy waves that are carrying a lot of data. I mean, just the fact that they're high frequency waves can be damaging to health. And I mean, that's just one drawback of this, because the drawback is health. And also, I mean, people are worried about, is it actually going to work? Because if you go into a building, you're going to lose your 5G signal pretty fast.
Yeah, because it's all that energy is going to be dissipated into the solid building itself. Yeah, that's definitely going to be something to watch. I don't really.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to follow this, because it's going to really be the next step for everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of information here that's not going to be
Well,
probably relevant in like 2 months.
Well, where's the article coming from, so that way our listeners know
This
where
is
to
from
go?
CNET.
Okay.
So, I mean, I trust CNET pretty well with this kind of stuff. I mean, they can report well, but the trick is here, how much of this has actually been validated by Verizon and the other telecom companies.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to push something out regardless of it being harmful or not, knowing what's happened recently. Like, I still don't trust them after the whole NSA thing in 2013.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something to watch, because that'll definitely make our lives a lot faster.
Yeah, totally. All right, next up we have something to do with concrete 3D printing. I don't know why all my articles today have to do with 3D printing, but that's just how the cards fell, I guess. So, concrete 3D printing will put an end to boring buildings. This has to do with construction, which is one of the largest industries in the world economy. Currently $10 trillion globally, almost 13% of the world's GDP. But it's suffered in recent decades from poor productivity compared to other sectors like tech or service industries in general, or even agriculture and manufacturing, which are increased their productivity by 10 to about 15 times since the 1950s. Construction tends to remain stuck at the same level as it was almost 80 years ago, but other research that we've seen come out of 3D printed concrete is a possible solution to these problems, and it allows for relatively interesting shapes, like the one that I'm looking at from physics.org. This is where the article comes from. It looks like kind of arrowheads almost in a sloped pattern inward. And those on a building would actually be pretty interesting to see. I don't know. It looks like an interesting pattern.
Yeah, and the building that they've actually done is they built a concrete building in Russia in 24 hours in the dead of winter. And if you've ever heard about Russia in the winter, that's not a fun place to build. So
Nah, it's like Canada in the winter.
yeah, pretty much.
It's not fun.
That's why no one invades Russia in the winter.
Tell you that. Tell that to Germany.
But these houses are going to be so much more interesting, and I can see this being an amazing thing in third world countries where they need to create housing fast, and that's going to be good housing that's going to last a long time with a lot of benefits. And I mean, these houses are full houses. They're not like, look at what we can do. It's a show house. These are like full things, and it's not just houses they've been talking about. They've been talking about bridges. So like they did a 3D printed cycling bridge.
Oh.
And it took 3 months to print that, though.
Okay. My interest is more in how the process is. I'm kind of more interested in how they print the thing itself. I haven't really seen many videos of it.
I have. It's think of a 3D printer with a bigger pipe and a bigger filament tube, and they literally just run concrete into it.
Just straight liquid concrete, or
It's going to be so it's got lower water count, so it solidifies faster.
Oh,
but it's pretty much just concrete with less water.
So it's more like a paste then, kind of like concrete paste.
When you watch it, it looks like they're building with toothpaste.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. That tends to be what 3D printing looks like.
Mm-hmm. So
Printing
they're
with
just printing
plastic paste.
Yeah, they're printing this with what essentially looks like toothpaste concrete. Yeah. And it's really interesting because this will be a big factor in our lives because if they get us going, this is how they could be building buildings. I mean, if they can scale this up properly.
Well, I know some people have already been working on pre-manufacturing a bunch of building parts. I think this is also done in China where they pre-built a bunch of parts. I think concrete was included in that. And then they built an entire 3-story, I think it was like, what was it, like I think it was about the size of a football field.
Oh, wow.
The building that they made. It was like a warehouse in 48 to 72 hours. With a bunch of pre-made 3D printed parts from concrete and steel and whatnot.
And I mean, those preform houses are not a new thing to the market. That's kind of been around. But this is definitely going to be interesting to see because it's, these are definitely more livable houses for a lot less of a cost and a lot lower of a time.
Yeah, this will definitely disrupt the entirety of the housing industry as it stands.
Well, and also it's lower construction rates with lower injury rates because this is you don't have to have people building the building.
Yeah, but
you have robots doing it.
Well, what do you have with the scaffolding? I don't really know what the scaffolding is like or the internal structure. Is it just straight concrete? I haven't been able to.
It's just gonna be straight concrete.
So what's that going to do with? Well, I mean, I'm seeing one that just has a flat roof. What's that going to do in a hurricane? I wonder.
I mean, if you think about it, it's just like a concrete bunker. So those are going to be just as strong, and I believe they usually build the walls, and then what they do is they build either the roof separately, or I'm not actually sure how they build that roof because you can't exactly print a roof.
Unless you have scaffolding or some kind of support structure in there, like with regular 3D printing.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to want to see because, I mean, they could build a lot of the buildings on campus. They're trying to build a lot faster here.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to be spending that much money on a 3D printer here on campus for concrete.
True.
I think they're just going to leave it to the workers, or builders, just to do what they're doing.
Yeah, so this will be definitely one to watch because this could change the world.
Practically. All right, you want to get up next?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you think a math equation developed by Alex Turing 6 years ago in the war?
Alex Turing. Mm-hmm. Alan. It's Alan Turing.
My bad. It is still early. Alan Turing. So his equation for the code breaking is helping to explain the patterning of the scales on sharks.
Seriously?
Yeah. So it turns out that his equation was just right to show that his equation can figure out the patterns that develop as sharks grow. And it's an underlying feather pattern, but they grow essentially scales. But they're figuring that these these patterns could also be relevant in other species.
Uh, is this more like a fractal pattern, or I actually haven't read the article yet? But
I,
is this,
I believe it could be a fractal pattern. Naturally, I believe it would be a fractal pattern. But it's just like it's essentially predicting the natural variations in the animals
oh,
that are going to create these patterns. So it's more on a
okay,
genetic level,
okay, so
from my understanding of it.
yeah, I mean, I get a lot of people actually misunderstand what fractals are. There's these two idealizations of a perfect repeat, well, an idealization of a perfect repeating shape, and then on the other end, you have a perfectly smooth object. Fractals, by their very nature, just capture roughness. Like I think it was originally used to model geometry
Yeah,
of countries, even.
it is.
Like say the
The UK is like a pretty good fractal, actually.
oh it is, yeah, like the coastline of Britain. That's actually a pretty good
But
fractal in and of itself.
in this article, they don't mention fractals. They never say fractal. They're just saying pattern. So
Well, I mean, I see pattern and I see feather pattern, and that kind of just clicks with me just a
yeah,
little
that
bit.
could be fractal.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a fractal, but I'd be even more surprised if it was predicting just pure math, like purely mathematically what it is.
Yeah, and it's gonna be an interesting way to, because this is something that scientists have been looking at. How can we create shark scales? Because they're looking for more efficiency. So like,
And what? In shark scales? Why?
because you can do shark scales for aerodynamics, fluid dynamics, everything. You can make a faster submarine, faster boats, faster planes. Mm-hmm. Because shark scales naturally cut through things.
Seriously? Mm-hmm. Okay, I did not know that. I didn't even know sharks had scales.
So I mean, that's the awesome thing about this is it's drag reduction, and this would be a huge step towards drag reduction around the world and everything,
I would.
just by predicting. It's a very complicated process apparently.
I mean, we're not going to be coding airplanes in shark scales. I can guarantee you that much.
No time soon, I'd imagine. But the idea of this is to figure out how their genetics have made up these shark scales and these patterns, and how these patterns actually move forward to create the scaling you see on a shark. But I
Wow.
mean, it's definitely an interesting one, and it's still in developmental phases, but that
That'll
could be a
be
huge thing to see.
that'll be a huge thing to see. Now, before we get on to our funny article, I just want to say rest in peace, Stan Lee.
Stanley was impactful, definitely on me, and I'm sure on you.
I mean, if without him, I wouldn't have seen many of the Marvel movies.
I
So,
wouldn't have seen any of them, and I think that those eventually changed who I was. I mean, you start watching them when you're reading comic books.
yeah,
You, you can change who you are a little bit just from movies, and
it brings out the idea of the Ubermensch.
yeah, and I mean, I got inspired a lot by Stanley. Just from the Iron Man series, I got inspired to be more of a creator, and from Captain America series, I got inspired to be just look at the world a little differently. So we
Yeah.
just want to say rest in peace, Stan Lee, and he was an amazing man who put in an amazing amount of work on this world, and
Indeed, indeed.
I'm sure he's doing amazing things wherever he ends up now, and however you believe.
All right. Well, anyway, the New Jersey Supreme Court says that more than 20,000 breathalyzer tests are inadmissible after an officer calibrated the machine wrong.
Yeah, 20,667 people were charged with drunk driving that are being reviewed because all the sergeants skipped a step in calibrating their
Breathalyzer machine. Oh boy.
So 20,669 people got real lucky after partying.
Oh boy. That depends. How many of them were actually convicted? I don't think it says in here.
It doesn't say actually.
It doesn't say, but that's officials accused the officer in 2016 of not using a thermometer to check that the control solution on the instrument was at body temperature. If the control solution doesn't work correctly, it calls into question the accuracy of the results of every test done on that machine. And that was all the way. How many do you think he's done in a year?
Who knows? I mean, that could be
Any-
hundreds of thousands of people.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised considering how often DUI stops are nowadays with the dangers of drunk driving. But imagine if this is over like a 10-year period.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this because this is like something that could be crazy because this could be changing a lot of people's lives. I mean, this could impact a lot of people. But,
Yeah.
I mean, same time, don't drink and drive.
Don't-
ever drink and drive. Like, just, it's stupid.
No, don't ever do that.
Yeah,
Kids, if you're listening, don't do drugs either.
that too. So yeah, and I think that just about covers everything we want to talk about this week.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, I'm Grayson.
I'm Josh.
And this was Delta Y. And if you want to contact us, you can reach us from our Twitter page at Y_Delta.
Or our Facebook page. Honestly, I'll link all the, all our information. We'll put it in the description for you
I'll
guys.
be linking all these sources for our articles talked about today in the description as well. If you guys want to comment down below, like, share, and subscribe to the channel, or if you're on SoundCloud, like and follow us on SoundCloud as well.
And absolutely, and I mean, if you're willing to donate, we are trying to get better and better with what we do, and so something on Patreon would be amazing for us. And we'll link that as well.
We're going to work on getting a PayPal up for people that want a one-time donation as well, if they don't want the monthly commitment.
Absolutely. So,
Stay creative, and we will see you all next time.